Okay, we're live. It's Brent Leary. It's what's this? Wednesday. Wednesday. This is the first live stream for me of the week. It feels like, man, it seems like I should have done about 4 or 5 by now. But hey, it is what it is. Thank you for joining me. This is the BBC, not the British guys. It's the Brent Broadcasting Channel here. You guys know what it is right here. But I'm really excited to have my first guest of the week, Mr. Derek Andersen, who is the co-founder and CEO of Bevy. Derek, thank you for joining me, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I grateful to be here with you this morning and just take these off. I've been rocking the shades all week, so we'll
Yes.
try and we'll go eye to eye here for my first virtual eye to eye meeting of the week.
Yeah, so we had talked a couple weeks ago, and I thought I was going to start off with commenting on that really nice background you have with all the stuff up there. I thought I was going to like drop the little hint about the shoe game because you got a sneaker collection that's like goes for days. But then you show up with a little bit of eye issue here. Would you care to explain what's going on with that?
Sure, I have a disease known as ultra competitivism, and it manifests in lots of terrible ways throughout my life. And one of those is that I refuse to lose to my children at anything. And if it's dunk basketball, I'm like Hakeem Olajuwon. And if it's pickleball, I'm whoever their Michael Jordan is. That's who I am. So, anyways, I was playing tag with my kids on Sunday, and I went around a corner, thinking I was, 18, and my legs just went whoop, and my face and shoulder just went boom, smashed into the gravel.
Oh
So.
man.
And I woke up to my 7-year-old looking at me in the face and yelling, "You're like a war dad." I'm like, war dad? Okay, yeah, I guess that's my new brand. It's the war dad. So, anyways, so that's me. That's what you get. So try not to stare.
So, to quote somebody who I won't name the name of the person, your mind was telling you yes, but the body just, kind of. Okay, man. It's all good. We've all been there before, unfortunately, and get there a lot more often now. And yeah, it is what it is. But hey, man, I'm just glad that you're off the injured reserve and you're able to have this
I'm here.
conversation this morning.
I'm here.
So, man, I've been really looking forward to this. We have a mutual friend, Scott Wilder. Shout out to Scott for putting us together. Great guy. And I was talking to him about, I'm really, really interested in all these virtual event platforms. I go to a lot of virtual events now, like everybody else. I'm a CRM guy, I'm a customer experience guy, and you can just see the synergies between what CRM has been with sales and service marketing and now commerce, and also you know this whole idea of events, and we have to do digital events, and that provides an opportunity to connect all this great event happenings back into the CRM and customer experience stuff. So I've been, talking and checking out a whole bunch of platforms. And then I heard about you guys. And then Scott said, yeah, well, I actually happen to know co-founders over there. I was like, great. So and then like that was enough. I wanted to learn more about what you guys do and how you do it. But then I went to your website and I saw the story about your investors and advisors, and the whole idea of you wanting to have diversity and inclusion. So I really wanted to talk to you. I want to talk to you about both of those things. We're gonna start with the business first, and then we're gonna get into kind of the diversity and inclusion that you have really put at the foundation of the business. And we're also going to have somebody who's a part of that to talk about it. But first, tell me how you got going with Bevy. I know it kind of came out of your startup grind business and the way that you build communities around startups. But how did that transition to what you're doing with Bevy?
Yeah, so Bevy is a virtual and in-person platform that helps companies build their communities through events. And we started it through, as you mentioned, a community that I helped create called Startup Grind, And that started as just like a meetup, essentially, in my office here in Silicon Valley. And over the course of 4 or 5 years, very naturally and organically grew from one chapter to hundreds of chapters. And in the process of that, like my co-founder is a full stack engineer, and we were always building tools to try to scale, because we, frankly, like, the business model for Startup Grind is events, which, as people in the events industry know, is not the greatest business model in the world. So we really couldn't hire a lot of people. We had to automate as much as possible. And so, we were using all these tools off the shelf. And then finally, when we got to be in, 150 cities, the noise from the organizers started to get so loud because they were so upset with the tools that we were using. So I looked at everything in the market. I couldn't find anything that solved more than about 60% of our problem. And then we just embarked on building a tool really just for Startup Grind. No customer feedback, no, we knew what we wanted. We built that. It took us about a year to launch with 3 engineers and myself. And then we launched it, and our growth at Startup Grind started to take off again. And then I just started showing the product to other enterprises, and Atlassian became one of our first customers. And we realized that, hey, if Atlassian will use this product, we don't even have a website or a name or anything. We must have something special. And so then we spun it out into a new product and in a new company. And that was about 4 years ago. And we split the teams. And then since then, we've raised about $60 million. We run communities for companies like Salesforce and Google and Snowflake and many others. And, just trying to help sort of bring belonging to people inside of the products and tools that they love.
So you basically started out really around fostering a community, and events, of course, help to bring that community together and bring it to life. How do you compare and contrast what kind of the other ways that these virtual platforms are being built? Because it seems like you guys started in a different way. You started to support local events, and started to do this, I guess, the hybrid model of taking pieces of that community, local and then also virtual, to kind of keep connected over digital and offsite, so to speak. So how do you think how does that compare and contrast to what we've been seeing with some of these purely virtually platforms that are just focused purely on that, where you guys kind of combine both of these worlds?
Yeah, I mean, we really were exclusively in person before COVID, and we would host hundreds, sometimes thousands of events a month for companies, individual companies. But it's in cities around the world, people getting together. And when COVID hit, all of those communities shifted towards hosting virtually. And I think what I learned as a community organizer of Startup Grind is that, our mission has always been to educate every entrepreneur and startup in the world. And we were sort of anti-virtual before COVID. But what I realized is that actually the mission that we have is not even possible without virtual. Like, there's no way we can have a Startup Grind chapter in literally every city in the world. Like, it doesn't even make sense to do that. Like, but with virtual, like, we can sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Bring people together in different places, and that we don't have to sort of do the model that we had. There's such an easy way for us to expand it. And so I think other communities found the same thing. And so it was natural for us. A lot of them were just linking out to Zoom. And so we just said, hey, let's just connect the dots for you. Let's make it easier, better user experience. And we put virtual on top of the sort of event infrastructure that we had. And, and I think now, like, Startup Grind hosted 17 in-person events last month, versus like we did probably 275 virtual events. And before COVID, we did, 300 in-person events a month. So it's slowly starting to sort of come back and swing back a little bit. But I think the reality is like communities need to be flexible to what works best for them and whatever their community members want. And so virtual is now a new tool that they can put in that arsenal, and people are more accepting of it than they were before February of 2020.
How do you think being more of a community focused company originally, how do you think that benefited you in the Bevy platform by having that as a foundation versus starting at virtual and not having that real local community focus?
Events, and hopefully anybody watching this can relate to this. If you've been to an event or many events, for sure you've experienced this. Events are oftentimes very transactional. It feels like you're being sold to. It feels like you're being marketed to when you go to these company-driven events. And the reality with a community is that, well, so first of all, the most powerful form of marketing is word of mouth. Like it doesn't cost anything. It's friends. It's not a salesperson driven sale. So people can trust it more. And so if you sort of take word of mouth and you apply that to a customer base, like how do you get your customers to speak on your behalf and tell other prospective customers and other people that are already using the product but not using it as much that they should use it in this way, right? Like when you hear from a customer about something, you automatically let your guard down. And so so building a community in that way is so much more impactful. Having your customers host events for you, having your customers lead with the message for you. And Bevy is all about having those sustained, long-term, customer-driven experiences. So instead of the field marketing team just hosting a single event and then that's it, flying into Dallas and then flying out, like we have a community on the ground there. And the brand doesn't have 100% control over it, but if you have a good brand, a good product, like you don't need it. Like let the people run with it. And so a lot of the virtual conference products that we compete against are really just focused on hosting one great virtual event, which is fine. But it's not, in our experience, it's not the most valuable thing for users, which the most valuable type of events are the ones that are driven through the community and driven by the community. And it happens 365 days a year. It doesn't just happen one day a year and then you leave and you push people back to it the next year. It's happening constantly, every week, every month of the year.
The other thing about good old-fashioned face-to-face events, it's the networking. I've been to these huge events, like 160,000 people or whatever. They got like 23 tracks, but the thing I think I like best, I like going to the keynotes because that's where you get like the overall, everything's condensed and you get the big messages. And then the next thing I like is hanging out. you go into the networking events. You're in the hallways. You see somebody. Maybe you've never met face to face, but now you get a chance to meet, and so you're like, hey, let's set up a time and actually talk. That's one of the elements that is really hard to replicate with some of these virtual event platforms. But having your background, have you found that challenge to be a little easier to pursue or easy to handle versus a pure play like virtual platform?
Yeah, that I totally agree. I mean, for Startup Grind, one of our values is to make friends, not contacts. And so networking and really building deep relationships is a core part of any great community. You can certainly do it online, right? We've seen, Twitter's a good example of that. You can build relationships with people through Twitter or LinkedIn that that don't have an in-person component. You can do it through virtual events as well. I'm not going to say it's anywhere near what it is in person, but the costs and the effort and the time of in person sometimes don't outweigh the benefits. So like I saw somebody tweeting about this yesterday. They said, how even just one-to-one in-person events seem so ineffective, such an ineffective use of time, because Like you're traveling there, you're parking, you're finding a spot, you're buying something, you're buying a drink, and then you're getting back in the car, driving back, like, and maybe the meeting's not even very good, like, and like, it's just extremely ineffective. And so I think in some ways a conference can be the same way. Some of them can be incredible and great in person, and some of them I've been to in-person events where I didn't really meet anybody, and maybe that was my fault. But so I think you can get, what we do with networking is we bring people together, we facilitate it where we have people sort of in the room with a lot of people, and then we link people out and say, hey, go talk to this person, go talk to this person, talk to this person, so that there's a kind of there's somebody facilitating it, there's somebody ice breaking it, and yeah, it's not completely automated and 100% scalable, but I think what we found is, like, it doesn't need to be really effective. You can go 20 people to one moderator, and you can just facilitate some really interesting conversations that are much better than just being thrown into a room with a random person, and you're kind of like, who is this? And then in the browser you can just click and leave, and there's nothing that feels worse when somebody just bails on you on a when you're meeting with a random person and they just like bounce. So it's not in person, but that you can get a lot of benefits from that, and you can meet great people through that. So you're probably getting some percentage of the value at a fraction of the cost and work.
So you mentioned you're starting to see, these live events, face-to-face events. You're starting to see it come back. When you think about when we're finally past, the pandemic, and we're kind of whatever normal is, post-pandemic, it is what it is. But how do you see, events, the mix of events taking place? Do you see it swinging all the way back to what it was before, or do you see it kind of like somewhere in the middle, or are you seeing like the just more and more virtual events still taking place?
Well, I think I mean, probably very obvious to most people, like, I don't think we're ever going to go back to quite the way it was before. Hopefully my kids stop using Zoom for school in California, for starters. But I mean, I think local events are going to come screaming back, like the hyper local, smaller events in your city, events in your area. People with the same vaccine, people that don't have to get on planes. That I think is going to come roaring back. And then the piece that I think is a lot tougher, these bigger conferences with the international travel, different vaccine profiles, issues at the border, like those, the big CES types of events. I mean, hard to see when that comes back exactly. We have a 10,000 person in-person conference in Silicon Valley every February. I'm not sure when that's coming back in that capacity. SaaStr, I saw, they're going to do an event in September, all in person, everyone vaccinated, sort of outdoors. I mean, it's brave. It's brave to do that, and it'll be a ton of work. It's going to be hot. It's September in California. I mean, it's nice, but it's going to be hot. So, are you going to stand at a sponsor booth like you used to, crowded around? I don't know about that. So, and I think the other thing that changed is the way people look at events in general. This is, if you're into events, this is maybe interesting. If you're not, this may be more boring, but like, it used to be events are like, you have conferences, you have meetups, you have field marketing events, you have like all of these like very clear silos. Now all that stuff's just kind of messed in together. You don't know what is what, and which I think is good for consumers. Like, you don't just have to wait once a year for the grand, user conference and they pull out all the stops. Like, you don't need it, frankly. Like, do it 3 or 4 times a year, with less work and less money being spent on it. That's going to be better, I think, for most people. So, and then you don't need to fly. Like the hybrid thing, I mean, we have it. It's in our platform, and we're there for people to do virtual and in person in the same event if they want to do it. But I don't know that like 2-3 years from now, I don't know that that's really going to be a thing. I mean, we used to live stream our conferences. I mean, lots of people live stream their conferences. It's really expensive. But if you want to do, if you're going to do a full stage in-person event and a full stage virtual event, you need 2 separate teams to do that, separate speakers. It's 2 different events to do it right. So, you know, not everybody's going to be willing to make that effort to do that.
I'm so glad you said it's 2 separate events, because if you try to replicate, like, you know, try to 100% replicate what you do at a 10,000 person event, when you probably have, you know, like, huge audience, you got people up on stage, you got, you know, you can feel the energy, you can feel the dynamics going on. But if you just try to, you know, port that over, you know, to a virtual event where you can't feel it like you are if you're sitting in the middle of, you know, that kind of number of people, and there's a big stage, you're looking up and you're seeing all the lights. If you just try to put, you know, live stream that without really incorporating some of these elements that you need to keep people who aren't captive at the venue but are sitting at home with like 5 different screens around them, and if you start to get too boring or too long in a sentence or something, it's so easy to, you know, to turn to another screen. I think that's what's been missing as these face-to-face events had to go virtual. Now, I have seen a couple lately that are starting to get that cinematic, like they're treating it like a television show as opposed to just, you know, all right, we're just going to live stream what we were going to do with 100,000 people. I'm starting to see that, but I'm not seeing enough of it. Do you think we'll see more, you know, better use of the virtual platform and getting away from treating the virtual event like it was just a port of, you know, what we're going to do if we were sitting in an audience of 10,000 people?
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, look, when we used to do our live stream, we have a global community. We have, you know, millions of people in our community. 2,000 people would watch it, you know, and it would cost so much money because the internet at these venues is so unbelievably expensive, and then you got to have cameras and live streaming piped into that. Like, it's so expensive to do it. So you know, I totally agree. Like, it doesn't work because, you know, and the other thing is, like, people don't, pre-COVID, like, nobody wanted to sit in front of nobody would, like, there's no expectation of you sitting in front of your screen and watching a live stream all day unless it's like something really, really interesting. And that's probably like entertainment or music or something like that. So, or Netflix, much more interesting than Startup Grind, apparently. So I mean, I totally agree. Again, it comes down to cost, and it comes down to what you can afford. If it's Dreamforce, yeah, I mean, they'll probably have a full separate team, separate track, Salesforce, only virtual events, so that everybody at home, you know, yeah, they'll stream the keynotes, and then they'll have amazing, amazing speakers that are exclusive to virtual, and it'll be built for virtual. But most companies aren't Salesforce, and most companies can't do that. And so, like, I mean, for us, like, we would, frankly, like, we would have before COVID, we would have never used something like Bevy with Startup Grind, and we hosted our conference in February, right before the pandemic. We were like one of the last events that hosted their in-person event. Thank goodness we got it in, and thank goodness it was safe. But, you know, we would have never done what we did with Bevy just because we're so focused on the in-person. Now, like, we just have to make the decision. Do we want to do virtual? Are we willing to, like, pay for the team to do that? Are we willing to do all the work to have twice as many speakers, or whatever we're going to need? I mean, we'll do it in some capacity, but yeah, it's going to have to be unique and special. It can't just be ported, you know, from in person. You're totally right.
Wow. Well, so you talked about, you know, Dreamforce, and, you know, it's a huge event. It's a very well done event. They got great speakers. They got, you know, they got a lot of stuff going on. But I think the one thing that they have that a lot of other folks don't have is Leigh McGowan hair. And so it was a perfect segue. Perfect segue. So look, she got her Trailblazer community shirt on. You got the swag going.
That's right. I've been dropping Salesforce the last 3 questions. You know,
I
noticed. Can you hear me? Is my mic okay?
Oh yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, good. Because sometimes it makes me sound really Awesome. Hello, Derek. Hello, Brent.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, and you joined at the perfect time because we had just talked a lot about Bevy, the platform and the kind of the community behind the platform, and all these things. But I wanted to just kind of segue to talk about the other thing that really grabbed my attention about Bevy. And you know what? I'm going to pop up a little graphic here if I can find it, because I read this great article. I think it was in Fortune about Bevy, and why you wanted to be an inclusive, diverse company. And but it started out with this. It sounds like 1 year ago we had 27 employees and none of them were Black, and I am super embarrassed about it. I wanted to ask you, because a year ago, that was before George Floyd. We haven't quite hit the year anniversary with George Floyd.
Yeah.
So you were thinking about this before all of that took place. I want to know why you were thinking about it and why you felt embarrassed even before all the stuff with George Floyd was going on.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's part of startup grind. Again, sort of all roads lead back to startup grind in my life. But I mean, there's so many incredible organizations that we have worked with over the years to support members of the Black community. People like Street Code, people like Code 2040, the Thurgood Marshall Foundation. There are lots of people that where we have had these conversations about ways that we can make tech more racially inclusive. And in a startup, I'm not making excuses for myself. Like, I take full responsibility for this. But in a startup, what I'll say is in the earliest days of a startup, you're basically trying to get a dead body off the operating table, and that dead body is your product and into the hands of customers. And you flatlined and you're doing everything you can. And I think we, to a big fault, we weren't looking at all of the things that were going to make our company great, specifically around racial diversity. And so my co-founders and I, we had, talked about this and said, wow, we've got to do so much better than this. We have people inside the company trying to figure out, offer suggestions about what we could do. And then on May 25th, when George Floyd was killed, my co-founder, I was traveling. It's the day after my birthday, and I was traveling, and I was in an RV with my family, like trying to stay COVID free, and was driving back, and I was thinking about the stuff that had been happening that week, and I was just sort of frustrated with myself, and we try to be, sort of action orientated people. We're entrepreneurs, we're doers, we're not talkers. We try to be. And he called me and he's like, we have to do something. And I said, man, I'm literally thinking about this right as you're calling me. This is exactly what I'm thinking about. And we just said to ourselves, let's do what would be something big? What does meaningful change look like? And to us, 13 to 14% of the US population is Black. And we just said, well, what if we got to 20% of the company? I mean, I don't know if that's right or not, but that's just the number we made up. I was like, that would be 13 to 14% is the minimum, 15%. So what if we got to 20? And so we didn't really announce it internally, but we just started working on it. I hit LinkedIn and hit Valence and other communities to go find great people, and started just recruiting. And we found some amazing people, brought them in, and then we said to the company in September, we said, look, we're going to get to 20% of the company being Black. This is why it's important to us. And in the conversations I had with one of my lead investors, Kobe Fuller, who's African-American guy living in LA, he said, look, what you're not realizing, Derek, is not only is this going to make your company so much better, but it's going to make it so much more valuable because you're pulling from this broader talent base. You've got 15% of the population you're not even looking at, and you're going to collectively raise the bar of the talent. The companies you work with are going to appreciate it. They're going to be more likely to want to keep working with you. There's all these positive business effects around it. And so So yeah, so I mean that's what we did. We were 5% in June of last year. We got to 10% by September. We're just over 15% today. We think we'll get to 20% by the summer. We plan to do it in I didn't know how long it would take. I thought maybe it could take 2 years, but we're going to do it in the first year, and then we'll keep doing other things. But that's sort of the genesis of like what we wanted to do around racial inclusivity, and then with our funding round, we decided, well, we're doing this for our employee base. We should do it with our investors as well. Why not? And that's where a lot of wealth gets created, right? In these startups, it's with the investors. I mean, they sort of have the tables stacked in their favor, and so in this case, like, this is a good reason to have investors. Sometimes, as an entrepreneur, you at least for me, like I mean, you try to minimize dilution, you try to keep control as much as you can, but we said, hey, let's take 20% of this round. Let's have it be led by Black investors, and so we added about 30 investors, including Leah, who's here, and we're so grateful for her participating in that. But 30 absolutely amazing people I've looked to. Some I've looked up to my whole life. Others I've just met and now are like my heroes, because I know what they've done, and I wasn't aware of some of these people before we started reaching out, and so that's kind of what we kind of try to do at our employee base. We try to do it at our investor base, and really try to create wealth for the Black community, and then create just what a racially inclusive company should look like. And I think we're not the first to do this, but we're sort of on the cusp. And I think every company in the future is going to do what we're doing. I don't think there's anything proprietary about this. Everyone's going to do the same thing.
No, I think it's great. I want to just go back to say that was just a year ago. You came a very long way in a very short amount of time. And I think I saw where 60% of that recent investment round were Black investors, right?
Yeah, even more than that. Yep.
Even more. That's great. And we actually have one with us right now. So why don't we ask Leah? Leah, I mean, you come from Salesforce, who is traditionally, they are one of the leaders in this area of inclusion and diversity. And what was it that got your attention about Bevy, and wanted to invest in Bevy? Because I think I saw you on a live stream where you mentioned that this was the first time you did an angel investment. And so I'm curious, why did you want to go with Bevy? Did you see some similarities in how they were approaching inclusion and diversity and what you've seen at Salesforce? And did that play any role in this?
Well, I mean, first of all, if you just heard Derek's answer, who wouldn't want to be a part of that movement, right? Clearly this was on their trajectory as a company long before the George Floyd murder. And when the George Floyd murder happened, you had all these companies, tweeting and posting, and we're about change, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And, there were very few that were being about it outside of tweeting about it, right? And to see Bevy be actionable and meaningful action. I mean, if you just heard what Derek said, I mean, if we dissected just what he said, it started with the employee base. And it could have stopped there, right? And still been, impactful. But as we know, well, and as I've recently learned, because I was invited to take a class called Black Ventures by Black Ventures Institute, learning about venture capitalism and all the wealth and opportunities there. It was like Alice in Wonderland. You opened a whole nother door and you're like, oh my goodness, I didn't even know all this was back there. So then it brings up a whole nother world of, opportunities that I did not know about. And so, all things happen as they're meant to, because I took that course like I can't even remember, Lord, age kicking in, back in like November, December. And then, so I was, empowered with all of this knowledge. And then this opportunity came to me from Derek to be an investor in Bevy. And at this point, I was powered with knowledge. I was prepared. So I was like, oh, I know what this means. What round series is this in? And, how many investors? And I could understand it. Whereas if that opportunity had come to me prior to me being, powered with knowledge, I don't know that I would have taken it. So I think for me, what was really appealing about the opportunity was that, one, I highly believe in the product. I knew the product. I work with the product. I'm a customer of the product. And I really was fascinated and impressed with how they quickly pivoted during COVID to offer the virtual platform to keep conferences, because we needed to be able to offer our community something to allow them to stay connected in a very disconnecting time, right? And so that's what that platform allowed us to do. And then beyond the platform was the people, just the people, not just the employees, but the investors and the board. Like it's like a whole jambalaya of just goodness. And, being able to have the opportunity to be a part of that just seemed like a no-brainer to me. So,
wow, Derek,
it seemed like the right choice for the first time. For like, this is my first one. It just feel like such a good fit.
I think you just came up with a new tagline for Bevy. Bevy, a whole jambalaya of goodness.
I'm all about food. Anything with food.
So, Derek, what have been some of the biggest lessons you've learned through this experience? Because it sounds like this was the first. You guys made the decision and then you did it. What were some of the big takeaways from this experience, and how do you follow up? How do you kind of progress after this first year?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me is like I'm so energized and excited about this aspect of what we're doing in terms of building a company. It is like it's the most, if it's not the most exciting thing I've worked on, it's one of the most exciting things I've worked on. Of just just really going out and, I mean, in some ways, like most platforms, how do I say this in a way that all of the wonderful companies that I work with not get upset with me? What I have learned about being a Black professional is that the platforms, the system, it is in many ways stacked against these incredible people. And I have so many stories about, like, I'll share one story of one person that I met. We found this incredible African-American woman who was working at Cheesecake Factory, and we're looking at her resume, and she was the captain of her basketball team in college, and her brother is in the NFL. Like, this is a family that comes from excellence. This is a family that understands excellence, and she did incredibly well in college. And I was talking to her. I'm like, why are you working at Cheesecake Factory? She's like, I just haven't been able to get an opportunity. And I, as I have talked with a lot of Black professionals, and I have just seen over and over again that that there needs to be people opening more doors. We need to be shining more light on the incredible things that people from this community can do specifically for tech companies, which is, as James Lowry calls it, is like the last great opportunity to build wealth, and sort of the last revolution of wealth creation. And so, what I've seen is, as these people have come into our company, is just the contribution that they have made is in some ways greater than anyone we've ever hired. And so, so I think, trying to shine a light on that, trying to, again, we're sort of in the bottom of the first inning of what we think we can do and should do. And, frankly, like, the thing that makes me, and Kobe said this to me last year, he's like, just go do it. Don't talk about it. Don't tell anyone. Just, you just go see how you go, and, we're kind of out there now. So we, can we retain these great people? Can we create careers for them? Can we create place for them to thrive? We have to prove that, and is it just talk? Is it just marketing, or is it real? To me, it's very real, but we have so much to do, so many more steps to go. I don't know exactly what all those steps are, but we're going to get to the 20%. We're going to keep diversifying our leadership team and our board. And then when we get to that point, we'll kind of look up and say, okay, what's next? And try to set another audacious goal. And we still have to maintain those other things too as we keep going. So just kind of adding to that. But I hope, I mean, our sort of internal goal is to be the most racially diverse company in tech. And I don't exactly know what that means, to be honest, but I say it because I hope people reach out to me and say, hey, you're not even close. You got to do this, this, this. And that'll help me to figure out how to do that. But that's sort of our goal. And I think in the future way companies are going to be built, that's not even going to be a consideration to be that. Like, it will just be like that. But we have to go create that. And as a company that's gone from 27 to 120 people in just over a year, and as we hope to double that again in the next 9 months, keeping pace with that and growing, making that a key part of our growth, again, is empowering to us as a team that's trying to build a good culture and somewhere that people want to work, but also like it's making our company much more valuable. So if you're a capitalist, or if you're, an altruist, hopefully you can find somewhere there that gets you excited to be part of Bevy.
Can I add, Brent, in what Derek is saying too, and I think I really admire the approach. It isn't this, I'm going to go in and save, the savior mentality, but really figuring out how can we partner and bring the excellence that's there to light, right? And it's not a matter of, and knowing that it is a benefit for him and Bevy to bring in these diverse talent, and that it's going to help their business grow in a more holistic way, right? So it's not just about the money, but it's also going to have an impact, and it's going to be an inspiration, and all these different levels of it. So it's multifaceted. And the biggest thing is like, I'm going to be the great white hope and save everybody. It's like, I need to understand this so that I can make an impactful decision that's going to be mutually beneficial to all those at the table. And I think that's very important in being an ally, but also understanding it is also your problem. Like, it is everybody's problem. If one is down, we're all down. And how do we work to rectify this in a way that is a holistic approach? So, that's another piece that's really appealing to me.
I think it's great. And you both said it. I don't know what else I could say except I think being in the industry that you're in, you're in one of the hottest growth areas when it comes to these virtual events, and the fact that you're succeeding and part of that success, I've seen, the money you raised and the market cap valuation. But what's cool about it is, you're in a hot area, hot technical area, and you have already infused, equality and inclusion into it, and it's still growing. It's growing quickly. So
Exactly.
it also kind of builds a case study on, hey, this is not a charity thing. This is not just this is, we're doing this first, business first, and we building our business on a foundation of inclusion and equality that feeds the growth of the company anyway. So I think all in all, I think you had a pretty good first year, Derek. Black eye aside, I think you've had a pretty good first year.
And if you don't notice, he has to be intentional about that. This doesn't just happen. Like, I want diversity. Like, you have to be intentional. You have to take action, and you don't have to know all the answers, but you've got to take action to start learning and growing and asking questions and being humble enough to listen and hear different answers and try different things. So I think Derek is writing, whether he agrees or not, is writing the playbook of how to do it. Right. So.
Well, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to be the CEO. Like, you can be a manager, and you can do that inside of your own team. And, I think people have asked me, like, well, where do I start? I say, well, if you're the CEO, you can go talk to the hiring leads, and you can get on their team and become the number one recruiter and go do some work. Like, it's not rocket surgery, to make some effort to start. And, and then again, I think as people do it, they will feel what I have felt from it, which is just incredible power. And by the way, like, see a company that is growing and, you know, benefiting financially, dramatically financially from this strategy, which and for us started as conversations, but then became sort of board level KPI for us. But make no mistake, like, the growth that we've seen with the company, to me and my co-founders, we see it directly tied to the efforts that we've made to make our company more diverse.
Absolutely.
I don't know what else there is to say. This has been great. I want to be mindful of both of your time, but I really appreciate, you know, hearing both sides of the Bevy story, because, you know, it is a business, and you're in a hot tech space, and that has to be central, but it's also a part of the business to be inclusive and, you know, diverse right from the beginning, and it seems to be paying off for everybody involved, and I think that's great. And I look forward to seeing what happens, you know, a year, 2 year, 5 years from now. I'm assuming that, you know, the growth will continue, because the virtual events and the hybrid events, come on, man, you're in a great position, and it's great to see you having a team of investors and advisors that looks more like the country than traditional tech companies do. I think you're right. I think Leah's right. I think you're writing the blueprint. You know, maybe you have to do some bit of racing every now and again. You know, you got the pencil out; it's not in pen yet, but that's part of the process. That's part of, like, building a business. You're building a business on diversity. That's, you know, you're writing it as it goes, and I think that's pretty exciting. And so far, I think you guys have done a great job, and I look forward to seeing how it you know, progresses. So thank you all, and I would love to be able to see you guys at an event at some point.
Dreamforce.
Dreamforce. Yeah. Well, I'm not even going to ask Leigh about, you know, what those plans are, because I'm sure there are some serious plans going on for whatever that looks like.
Stay tuned.
But stay tuned. All right. Well, thank you both, Derek,
Thank you
CEO and
for
co-founder for Bevy, and that's my buddy Leigh. You know, I'll just tell a quick story. Yeah, I've seen her speak on, you know, several a Dreamforce stage at this point, but still, my favorite Leia moment is when we were sitting and you were playing the piano, and we had our own little conversation.
Oh yes, I remember that. I remember that.
That's still my favorite. I know.
I've watched it. It's good content.
It was fun. That was fun. I think I was all over the place. Get me to talking.
All right. Thanks again, folks. And
hey, Brent, the one thing is, if we ever do this again, this was great. The only problem I had is, could we get you a Bucks jacket, maybe? I mean, I think you'd look a lot better in a Tampa Bay Bucks.
See, I was trying to end on a high note, man.
See,
I mean, you know, we're the world champs, right? You know, we have Tom. I don't know if you heard that Tom Brady is on the Bucks now, but
all right. So, all right, you're gonna make me have to come out.
Is this recorded? Right. You can edit all that out, right?
Well, certain of these things will never be heard again. I have no problem with the Bucks. Matter of fact, I love the Bucks because I'm a Rams fan, as maybe somebody would tell when I'm wearing this stuff. And the very first time the Rams went to the Super Bowl, who did they beat in the NFC Championship game? The Bucks, 9-0. We won the Super Bowl in 1999. Who did we beat in the NFC Championship game to get to the Super Bowl?
The Bucks.
That's right. So I had no problem with the Bucks until they got their current quarterback, because I hate the Patriots, and Bob Fagel out there knows what I'm talking about. Can't stand them. And guess what you have to go and do? Get Tom Brady and win a Super Bowl.
Let's leave it at that.
So thanks for bringing this bad taste into my mouth after this really great conversation.
No, I'm seeing the side of Brent. That's like,
I think you need to talk to somebody about this. This is pretty serious.
It is
serious. Pretty serious.
Thanks for triggering that, Derek. Good job.
Yeah, and on that note, folks, it's been great. Thank you so much. I will see you guys next time. I'm doing a live stream, LinkedIn Live.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.